Hi, this is Craig from Sulcata Grove, and today we're going to talk about air layering. Air layering is a way to propagate plants, and it has some advantages over grafting. Some plants do better with grafting, some do better with air layering. It just really depends on what kind of plant you're doing. This is Indonesian white seedless guava. It does very well for air layering. Other things, mulberries, lychee, several other things do very well with air layering as opposed to something like a mango, which you can't air layer
People do
at all,
though.
as far as I've heard.
No, people are doing it now.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I've never done it. I always graft mangoes. I always air layer guavas. So we're going to talk about air layering. So for air layering, you need a couple of things. This is my air layering bucket. So you're going to need some plastic. You can use plastic bags cut up, which is what I use. You could potentially do it with saran wrap. You could use, I suppose you could use any kind of you need a wider piece, but of clear. It does need to be clear. We'll get to that in a little bit. You're going to need some long fiber sphagnum moss. This is what I use. Now potentially you can also use potting soil. It's a little bit more difficult to use. This is easy because you can get a nice handful of it. You get a handful of potting soil, it's a little bit harder to hold on to. You're going to need some aluminum foil. You're going to need some kind of a cutting instrument. I'm using a cutting instrument, box cutter. And then you're going to need something to secure it up with. I use cable ties. You can use tape. You could use twist ties. It doesn't really matter. And you can use rooting hormone. I'm not using any here. I have used it before. It depends on the plant. Some of them do better with it. Some of them really don't need it. Guava doesn't need it, so I'm not going to use it. So for air layering, it's always best to use an upright shoot if you can. A lot of times if you use a horizontal shoot, yes, it will air layer fine, but in some trees, even if you plant that and you plant it upright, it's still going to really push itself to go horizontal, and it has weird growth habits to it. Guava doesn't seem to do it as bad, but some of them do. So what you want to find is a piece. You don't want a gigantic piece. You want something that's, you can imagine being in a small pot. You don't want to, I could air layer it, try to air layer it way down here on a thick part. It's just not a good idea. Even if it roots, you've got too heavy of a plant. You want something nice and small. So I'm going to just take off some of the leaves here for the part where I'm going to be working. And you really don't need to leave. I'm leaving a lot more up there than I need to. And so what you're going to do is you want to tell this plant that it can start putting out roots. Well, it's not going to naturally do that where you have a full, can you see that? Okay. Where you have a full sheath of your bark going around. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to score around the bark. And you don't want to cut deep, because if you cut deep, and I have done that before, if you cut too deep, once you put this on and the wind blows, you've made a weak spot and it'll break. So I'm going to do this in two places about an inch apart, and I'm just going to make a ring just cutting through that outer layer of the bark. And then I'm going to make a little vertical to connect the two, and then I'm just going to peel off. I'm going to peel off this little ring of bark. And so what you're left with is just a little exposed piece of the wood there. So this is going to give the place where you've still got, on the inside, you've still got water flowing up to this. So this is going to stay alive. But when it's going back down, it's going to hit this dead end, and it's going to tell it to put out roots here. So we want to give it something to put roots into. You want to take a nice little fist size, baseball size chunk of sphagnum moss, and you're going to put it around both sides. So you've made just a little, what you're basically making is a little pot around this that you can have something that for the roots to grow into. I have these bags cut, I've got a little strip. I'm going to put this around here. This is the tricky part, and this is why using soil is a little more difficult. And just kind of wrap this around here. then, you see this is good and wet. You want this good and wet. And then I'm going to take some cable ties. I'm going to put one around the bottom. And then we'll put one around the top.
Is it better to do them with just a...
So what you got now here is a nice wet ball that's covering that place that we opened up. And there's only one last stage, and that is the aluminum foil. Now the aluminum foil is there for two reasons. One, most roots don't like sunshine, and it can inhibit root growth when the roots get out to where they're getting the sun. But the main reason you're doing it is what you've got here is a little plastic bag with water on the inside sitting out in the sun. And if you ever know with the little greenhouse, this thing will get baking hot and it will kill the whole thing. So this is there mostly to keep that direct sunlight off of that plastic bag. And also all you're doing, you don't need to do anything, you're just basically doing this enough to keep the sun out. And then you have to wait. Now this can take anywhere from 3 or 4 weeks to 3 or 4 months, depending again on the type of plant it is, the time of year, and how active the growth is. But what you'll do then is every month, every 2-3 weeks, however often you want to check, just come back and check this and peel off. I put this on messy. If you put this on nice and neat, it's easy to take on up. You will not take this on off. And what you're going to look for is this will get full of roots. And you'll take this off and you'll see all these roots coming through here. And at that point, it's ready. So this is a breadfruit that we air layered about a month ago maybe. And I think we've got some ready. We're just checking this, and this one's ready to come off. So when you peel this off, and you can see we've got a lot of root growth in here. It could probably stand to have a little bit more, but we're going to go and open this one up. So you can see this branch that it's on has, I already took one leaf off so we could see it. I'm going to take another leaf off here. And I'm actually going to take even one more. I'm going to leave 2 big leaves on there, and plus it's got a new shoot coming up. And it's dripping a lot of sap, so I'm actually going to wait a little bit till the sap stops dripping so that it's not, actually it wouldn't hurt to water this real heavy right now too, just to make sure that this has got plenty of fluid in it before I shut off its fluid supply forever. So let me put a little water in here. Okay, so we cut these leaves off, we watered it real good. Ideally, we really would have watered it really good yesterday and gotten it really good and soaked so that it just would have been, but we're in good shape. So we're going to take off these cable ties, and I really like these reusable cable ties that have the little lever. You can use them more than once, and for air layering it's really nice because you can reuse them. And I didn't
even know those existed.
Yeah, these are great. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this off because I can't really unwrap it. So then we're going to take this off. I'm going to unwrap this. You can see we got our root system started here, and so we're going to pot this up. And you want to keep it, of course, really well watered for the first several days until your roots really have a chance to establish. But then you've just made a brand new plant, and it's as easy as that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.